Hello? It's just me, but that's okay, because that means I can give you all the special attention you need, chat. You're not competing with any floozy like Felix. Nonetheless, hopefully the sound's good today. I'm sort of adjusting my own sound, but my sound isn't your sound. And I hope everybody else is having a wonderful morning. And by morning, I mean evening. But morning sounds better. What are you guys excited about this week? Because I'll tell you what I'm excited about. A still shot of the new Lord of the Rings movie just came out. Well, not movie. They are making an anime of the War of Rohirrim, which is going to be cool. The series, and in it, there is what appears to be a sunset or a sunrise, but it's actually the trees of Valinor, which is so cool to me because I didn't think they were going to do anything with the trees of Valinor because that's pre-First Age. In fact, it's called the Years of the Trees. Anyways, that's what I'm excited about this week. Is there anything you guys are excited about this week? It's midsummer. I think things are a little bleak still in the world, as they always will be, but something that at least makes you look forward to something. Scorm says, hashtag floozy Felix. Yeah, we need to not explain this to him when he comes back and just do that again. To be fair to Felix, I didn't really invite anybody on this week because I kind of really enjoyed when we were it was just you and me, chat, and we were doing sort of dropping words and putting together stories. I really did enjoy that, and I just thought it would be good to do it again, give everybody else a day off. All right, well, let's see if anybody remembers. What's the first part of our show? Because our own people forget what the first part of the show is, which probably doesn't bode well. Oh man, I'm so happy with this song. Guys, it's the second song break. All right. That's not what people paid for. Well, you're not paying, so you'll get what you get. It's Left on Red. Since I'm kind of on my own today, and every time we do a Left on Red, the chat usually puts some stuff in. So I thought you guys could throw up some things you've enjoyed in the chat recently. Remember, it's just got to be story-based, whether it's, story-based video games or whether it's story-based films or TV series that are, heavy on story or character, or whether it's books you've read. Obviously, we're all book writers here, so we enjoy that. But OGS remembered recommendations. Scorm says too much pressure, can't remember. Because I'm actually going to sort of forego my Left on Red, or at least one of my slots here, to promote anything you guys want to talk about, but also, while you catch up to me and give me some things that you think people should read, I wanted to let you know that yesterday, if you didn't catch the notification, the first episode of what will hopefully be something close to weekly of Avalon's recommendations is up. It's called Lazy Book Recommendations, based on some stuff she did on Instagram. Because Avalon reads more books than any human being I've ever met. And so I was never worried she would run out. They're 2 minutes. They're pre-recorded, so it's a very small commitment. And basically she recommends a book, gives you a little bit of insight as to what it's about and why she likes it. I encourage you to check them out. It seems like you're dancing to the music I'm listening to, which is delightful. Well, the music coming through the stream, and to me, is the same, if that's what you mean, Holly. Unless you're listening to additional music. I can hear the music. What I can't hear, I got a question about this off stream a little while ago. What I can't hear is how it's mixed to my voice, because my voice is mixed quite loud in my headphones, so I know what I'm saying. But the book that she recommends this week is a wonderful book that I think you should definitely go and check out. Scorm says, I have a weird one. The Canadian 90s pop group has a bit of a running internal story that you can pick up on as you listen to their albums. Which pop group? Prozac. Oh, Prozac. Oh my god. Well, you're gonna get Holly with that too. Prozac was I didn't follow all their albums, but obviously the most famous one I definitely fell. I like that. I never quite figured out how to tell stories in albums, but the people that do it very well. Like the one that comes to mind for me, though, a much more bleak version of it, was the Downward Spiral from Nine Inch Nails. I think you'd have to really pay attention to understand that it's a story, but it's definitely a story. Oops. It was kind of popular to do that with dark metal brooding stuff, because I know Tool did some of that, and the original Mars Volta album was that way. Holly says, well, I read in a special history edition of National Geographic this week that Brooklyn and Harlem in New York come from the original Dutch names for those places when it was New Amsterdam. Oh, cool. I didn't know Brooklyn was a Dutch name. Yeah. Prozac is awesome. I don't know how well it would read if you've never heard of it. It was definitely of a certain time. But those of us that heard it loved it. For my part, you know, there was a couple of books I thought about recommending, and it's tough for me to make the call because they're books that I would recommend to specific people. There's a book that from Chuck Palahniuk. So Chuck Palahniuk wrote Fight Club. That was his first book. And then he wrote a few other books. And Chuck Palahniuk kind of writes a pretty similar stories and themes. Like the premise is different, but everything about it feels the same. Chuck Palahniuk has a book called Survivor, if I recall. I own it, but I think it's in storage, so I can't show it to you. Which is about a person who leaves a cult, if I recall correctly. I think it's the most cohesive book he's written. That was like, didn't have major flaws, still had his distinct style, and was in a lot of ways his peak. I'm tempted to recommend Choke, but Choke is, I mean, even for Chuck Palahniuk, a pretty gross book. And by the way, that's kind of what happened with Chuck Palahniuk. I read Chuck Palahniuk books because I really liked Fight Club. I read Survivor, I read Choke. I liked all three of those. Those were kind of like the trifecta of, if you like Chuck Palahniuk, you probably like those. And then I got to that one that was a lot of short stories and urban myths that I can never remember the name of. And when I hit that one, I was like, oh my God, this is disgusting. And I know that that's kind of his thing. He kind of did a shock thing. I think he felt like that was his only thing. But that's not really what I liked about Chuck Palahniuk. So I dropped off after that book. I think I finished it, but I was begrudging about it. And I've never really read anything since, because it just sounds like he's trying to one-up his grossness. Holly says, I knew he was going to bring up Nine Inch Nails. Well, why wouldn't I? The only band I like more than Nine Inch Nails is Queens of the Stone Age. But they don't do story albums. All right. Well, we have advertised some of our storytelling choices here, so I am going to move us on to our Litgame. Now, as per usual, chat Be as active as you wish to be. Obviously the more the better, because a lot of the appeal of this, if we can sort of pull back the curtain and be a little meta here, a lot of the appeal is screwing me up or making me think about things. Otherwise, it's just watching a guy talk to himself while he writes. You like the branding there? We're not sponsored by Pepsi yet. But here's what we're going to do today. We're kind of blending some ideas that I've had before into a different format. We're going to take old vintage pictures. I'm going to keep the random word generator because I like what it brings to the table. So you folks are welcome to use any of the random generators we've talked about to make your own recommendations to me. And because I will favor your recommendations. But what we're going to do is we're going to take old pictures and we're going to try to write what are called postcard stories, which is a true challenge for me. I rarely succeed at this, so I think we're going to see me not succeed here. But postcard stories are about 500-ish words. They're a little bit distinct from flash fiction, though they're pretty much the same thing. Postcard stories tend to be like little urban legendy kind of things that you might have found in the back of certain magazines in a certain era. They don't really establish character very well or anything like that. They're more just trying to get something creepy across. So I thought I would sort of throw myself at the wall and see what I get. See if I can write that style. And to show you an example here, here's one of our pictures. I happen to think that just old pictures in general give creepy vibes. And to that end, I kind of feel like I tried to picture, not just take pictures of old Victorian people, though there's a little bit of that, something a little bit different. So, here we have a fellow fishing. That will be our first one. Here we have a creepy basement that for some reason has a folded up gambling equipment. I mean, I think I have a pretty good idea why it does, but we're not going to insert the story of reality just yet. And then I don't know if we'll get to all three, but this is the third one. It was an old postcard. I mean, these are real people, so just understand that I'm not saying anything about these actual people. These are just photos I found. So, by the way, in chat, if you have a specific preference to what picture I should be looking at, now would be the time to speak it. And then I have my random generator, which I'm going to shrink down a bit so you can see the picture a little better. Is there a middle ground here? Windows? Sure, that works. All right. So, let's generate a random word. Guide. Well, guide works well here. Oh, Holly's been talking. Bloodletting and Miraculous Cures by Vincent Lam is a magnificent book by a Canadian doctor. Oh, interesting. Her wedding dress is on backwards. No, her head is on backwards. Is it? I think that's just the style. Okay. So, Chad, if you have any preferences, let me know, but I'm going to start writing about this gentleman. I think I'm going to have to shrink it up because he's taken over my whole page. There we go. Should be able to write beside you, right? Nope. There we go. Oh, hey. Go away. Classic Windows. Well, not Windows, but... This such a universal experience. Just move one thing and everything goes nuts. Alright, perfect. That was exactly what you needed to do. Alright. Oh, we got a vote that you should start with a couple. Okay, let's see if that picture's still working. Oh, it's working into other stuff. There we go. Okay, get up here. Get up here. Whew. I swear to God. There we go. All right. Okay. So there are people saying that her head is on backwards. I really don't think that's true. But our first word that came up was guide. I mean, with these postcard fictions, I'm going to have to take a second to think of the story a little more. Because one of the things about writing in the random generator is you sort of find a story as you write. But when you have a limited amount of words, you have to be a little more focused. You guys can't see it. There you go. And yeah, the word of the hour is up there. Yeah, so the idea is to write a story, a sort of ghost story, about this picture. Like, I think the original concept of postcard picture stories, which you would write them on the back of postcards. So if you can imagine for a minute, if this was the picture as the premise, and then you flipped it over and would read the story. What if it's French Guy? I do know French. I don't know. Oh, I see. Didn't hear what I was saying. Okay, so two people looking fairly happy, but you know, he looks a little aggressive there. He's sort of like mashing her face into his. Twisted her head around till it was backwards. Okay, so there's lots of votes about a backwards head. Take that into consideration. When I... Whoa. What is this terrible text? Change text font. Change font on me. Nobody can read that. Courier new. No, thank you. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so when I told... I told the archivist that was my grandfather. He told me turned pale and guided me into the back. There's a bunch of requests about WWF. He looks like he's about to break her nose on the table. I agree with that. I will agree with that. He's about to break out maybe he's built her with a donated body and his last wife's head. The archivist scrambled through his files and pulled more pictures of the couple. In each, I began to notice my grandmother looked always a little twisted and awkward. Okay, so when I told the archivist that was my grandfather, he turned pale and guided me into the back. The archivist scrambled through his files and pulled more pictures of the couple. In each, I began to notice my grandmother looked always a little twisted and awkward. Finally, he set before me this picture of her head cocked up, her neck in form of one broken, a grin stretched across her face. And my grandfather leaning in for a kiss. We went straight to body horror. Why is Rory trying to make this all classy? I'm not trying to make this classy. I'm trying to work in what you guys recommended. Here, let's throw a word in. Progress. Interesting. A grin stretched across her face, and my grandfather was leaning in for a kiss. Progress. The progress of the pictures was towards an almost fatigue in my grandfather's postures. The archivist, in silence, tapped the photo corner where some staining had occurred. He just needs to drive in movie catchphrases. She could always see her past. What a pain in the neck. Not vampires. I did consider vampires. I think that's probably too obvious. I shrugged. Then the archivist spoke. For a head transplant in black and white picture days, it went pretty well. This photo was pulled from a camera in this room. He then spread before me crime scene photos of gore and blood and throwing broken chairs. The archivist left me with the photos and headed to the back. In the detective's notes, it said only the dugout remains of my grandfather had remained. No sign of his wife, save for her skin. Next week, can we use the same picture, but just make up what he's whispering in her ear? You can put in whatever you want in the chat. I'm on an idea now. Skin, which in one piece was left on the ground as if it were a leather suit. A leather gown. As if it were a gown. Neighbors reported seeing some many-armed creature emerge from the chimney and move swiftly into the neighbor's house. But no one saw it further. We're getting a little long, but we're almost done here. After a moment to absorb this information, I smiled. And said, "Yes, that's my grandmother for sure." Yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay, so I will just reread the story because it's nice and short. When I told the archivist that was my grandfather, he turned pale and guided me into the back. The archivist scrambled through his files and pulled more pictures of the couple. In each I began to notice my grandmother looked always a little twisted and awkward. Finally, he set before me this picture of her head cocked up, her neck in the form of one broken, a grin stretched across her face, and my grandfather was leaning in for a kiss. The progress of the pictures was towards an almost fatigue in my grandfather's postures. The archivist in silence tapped the photo corner where some staining had occurred. I shrugged. Then the archivist spoke. This photo was pulled from a camera in this room. He then spread before me crime scene photos of gore and blood and thrown broken chairs. The archivist left me with photos and headed to the back. In the detective notes, it said only the dugout remains of my grandfather had remained. No sign of his wife, save for her skin, which in one piece was left on the ground as if it were a gown. Neighbors reported seeing some many-armed creature emerge. You know what? I don't like emerge. Slither from the chimney. and moved swiftly into the neighbor's house, but no one saw it further. After a moment to absorb this information, I smiled and said, "Yes, that's my grandmother for sure." All right. There's picture 1. We'll try to involve you more in this one. Or this one. You have to write a story and post it about this many-armed chimney creature. Post it on your short story site, says GS. Maybe. I don't know if it works in a longer format. I think the creepiness is not knowing much about it. Okay, so some of us have to sleep tonight, says Ollie. Did anybody find that actually creepy? It's hard to tell when you write it, because like it's a very different experience. Pretty pleased, that was awesome. We'll try to be a little more silly on this one. I apologize if you showed up for the silly. We will try and be a little more silly. Damn, haha, that one got dark, said Scorb. Okay, we have this fisherman. I still want to tend towards something spooky, but I do like the idea that, like, spooky is kind of a setting that you can put stuff in. Like, it doesn't have to be clear horror. It can kind of be funny. And the one that comes to mind for me is What We Do in the Shadows, I think is what it's called. And it, as somebody said, once described it, it's basically the premise of, what if there were vampires, but they were really dumb? So his name is Guy Gee, and he's a guide. Many-armed grandma creature. That must be a wicked at crochet. I don't always seem to tend towards infestation in my horror writing. I don't know what that says about me. It's probably because it's a creepy thing, or maybe it's just sort of like the big thing of today is hanging in the back of my head. We'll do another story here because we still have some time. Though we are getting some people jumping off the boat here, which is fair enough. Thanks for staying for the first story. The fisherman here. Now, I'll tell you why I like Fisher Tales. The reason why I like Fisher Tales is because I like, well, let me put some context on this, but I like the world of Lovecraft. His writing is okay, and him as a person is terrible. He's a terrible person. But his world concept is marvelous, and it's very heavily associated to the sea. He was like, I mean, maybe not the first, but in modern literature, I think he really kind of keyed into the idea that the dark and unknown is so rich with concepts. So his was depths of space, depths of the ocean. So I do like fishing for that reason. So let's kick it off with a word, see what I come up with. Contempt. All right, well, contempt is a pretty powerful word. So we have a fisher on a boat. He seems to have like a fake eye or a crazy lazy eye. Though he was... Oh, what is with this? It's back, guys. Courier New is back. Nobody writes in Courier New. It's like what you put on gift cards or something. Though he was... treated with contempt by the average passerby. When he was landside. No one caught better fish than... I don't know, what's a name? Gerald. Contempt of the sea. The richest socialites that attended the finest balls in the finest dining suites on the coast. All ate Gerald's fish. Yet, should they cross paths with him in the street, they would yield, turn their nose, and carry on another direction. There we go. Now we got a premise. Courier newsstands, get in the comments. Stands. Yeah. People getting courier newsstands. So we have this premise of like this guy catches the best fish, but the socialites turn their nose up on them. So what do I want to do with that? What do you guys want to do with that? Do we want me to work in some WWF this time, chat? Generate another word. Okay, we'll generate another word. We'll make it a verb this time. Pose. So, like, there's a few things you can pick up on here, okay? So, like, there's selkies. There's, selkies are seals that... Oh, random word, fidget. I like fidget, because that's what I do. Selkies are seals in Irish lore that come when they come to shore, they turn into beautiful women, and in order to keep them as wives, you have to steal their seal skin. There's mermaids, which pull you under the water. There's like Cthulhu type creatures, squids and things that pull you under the water. There's, you know, haunted ghost ships. So do we feel like he will... Is the haunting part his smell? Oh, possibly. Oh, that's a cool idea. Holly, you have given me an idea. Okay. Yet, should they cross paths with him in the street, they would yield, turn their nose, and carry on another direction. He was rarely ashore, and I only saw him maybe a dozen times in 10 years. A dozen times in a decade sounds way better. The ocean is scary for real. Scorm, I don't really find myself scared of the ocean, but I feel like I should be. Conversely, I have like trypophobia like crazy, and I'm not good with spiders. They're fat blubber Irish mermaids, yeah. And I only saw him a dozen times in a decade. For the scorn he received... That's not how you spell scorn. There you go. There you go, Scorm. You're kind of in there. For the scorn he received... the only legitimate complaint was his smell. Though no fisherman smelled sweet. He was of another order. There were arrangements that he would drag his fish to boxes picked up after he had left. Another oddity was he sought to be paid in gold. No currencies. And up front. No one ever saw him eat. In the local diners, nor did he keep a crew. He simply sailed out on a small trawling tugboat, typically at night, and returned with large fish. Scorm says, heck yeah, me! The local gangsters, once determining his relative value to the coast, sought to take over his operation, persuade him to fish under their control. At first, they waited and spoke to him, but he ignored them like he ignored all others. They choked at the smell and uttered their threats, but he walked the fish from the boat to the boxes with the same pace, pushing through them once. Their second attempt was to show up with guns and threaten him. He responded no different. Their third attempt was to rig his boat with a bomb. This was only found out the next morning by the town, who found the thugs washed up, bloated, and uncovered in the autopsy an explosive device in one of their stomachs. The final time he came to town, it was broad daylight. It was, no, not daylight, dawn. It was dawn as he wrapped up his deliveries. The gangs pulled up and shot at him. His clothes puckered and I realize I've completely forgot about you, chat. Sorry. His clothes puckered and... Come on, what's the word? This is very pure writing moment here. Puckered and... Blue with the force of the piercing fire. Yet his path remained unbroken. I know, I promised you guys attention. What an entertaining stream. Watching a guy just disappear into his own head. Yet his path remained unbroken. It was later said the blood that was found on his walk through bullets was clotted, old, and stained by great time. From that moment forward, the boxes were no longer filled. But one could not help but notice tough men wandering a bit lost in the days afterwards. Pale and hollow stares. In their eyes, always turned to the sea. The gangsters wanted him for a disposal service. I don't really know what this is. I mean, I do in my own head, but I don't know how it works as a story. I guess I'll read it aloud. I think this will be the last one I do. We'll skip the gambling one. Though he was treated with contempt by the average passerby when he was landside, no one caught better fish than Gerald. The richest socialites that attended the finest balls and the finest dining suites on the coast all ate Gerald's fish. Yet, should they cross paths with him in the street, they would yield, turn their nose, and carry on another direction. He was rarely ashore, and I only saw him maybe a dozen times in a decade. For the scorn he received, the only legitimate complaint was his smell. Though no fisherman smelled sweet, he was of another order. And odor. There were arrangements that he would drag his fish to boxes, picked up after he had left. Another oddity was he sought to be paid in gold, no currencies, and up front. No one ever saw him eat in the local diners, nor did he keep a crew. He simply sailed out on a small trawling tugboat, typically at night, and returned with large fish. The local gangsters, once determining his relative value to the coast, sought to take over his operation and persuade him fish under their control. At first, they waited and spoke to him, but he ignored them like he ignored all others. They choked at the smell and uttered their threat, but he walked the fish from the boat to the boxes with the same pace, pushing them once out of the way. Their second attempt was to show up with guns and threaten him. He responded no different. Their third attempt was to rig his boat with a bomb. This was only found out the next morning by the town, who found the thugs washed up, bloated, and uncovered, and as was uncovered in the autopsy, an explosive device in one of their stomachs. It doesn't say quite what I was picturing. An explosive device crammed down into one of their stomachs. The final time he came to town, it was dawn as he wrapped up his deliveries. The gangs pulled in with fine black Cadillacs and shot at him. His clothes puckered in blue with the force of the piercing fire, yet his path remained unbroken. It was later said the blood that was found on his walk through bullets was clotted, old, and stained by great time. From that moment forward, the boxes were no longer filled. But no one could help but notice tough men wandering a bit lost in the days afterwards. Pale and hollow stares in their eyes always turned to the sea. Some said they just wandered in one day and were never seen again. Yeah, so here it is in a nutshell for anybody I lost on that. Kind of a lich fisherman, if you know what a lich is. Okay, well, we got 2 stories done, all by my lonesome, and did not engage the chat, so I've succeeded in one respect and failed in another, which is really what we're all about here at the Varietal. It brings us back down to Unqualified Advice. So, I mean, I don't know how much I want to give a lot of advice this week. I find that it's always best to do it in a conversational way. But I guess the one piece of advice I've never really given is probably the piece of advice that is the most important to me. It's not even my advice. And it involves a quote, which I'll pull up. A licherman, oh, scorn. You're hired. We pay nothing and have high demands on your time, but you're hired. See if I can pull up the full quote for you. There we go. Okay, so this is from a painter, Chuck Close. As I found out later, Chuck Close has a bit of a problematic history, as so many painters do, but he was a painter in the 80s, and I'm going to read what I think is probably his most famous piece of unqualified advice, but I'm going to qualify it here first. Don't eat yellow snow. I'm going to qualify it here for you first. This is advice for people that want to be a professional artist. This is not advice for amateur artists. Amateur is not an insult, and it's a term he uses in this. Doesn't mean it in an insulting way. Amateur just means you do it as a fun thing to get by, and it's legitimate. But the amateur professional is a a bit different, where you're kind of delivering on a schedule. So here's the advice from Chuck Close. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. If you wait around for the clouds to part and a bolt of lightning to strike you in the brain, you're not going to make an awful lot of work. All the best ideas come out of the process. They come out of the work itself. Things occur to you. If you're sitting around trying to dream up a great idea, art idea, you can sit there a long time before anything happens. But if you just get to work, something will occur to you, and something else will occur to you, and something else that you reject will push you in another direction. Inspiration is absolutely unnecessary and somehow deceptive. You feel like you need this great idea before you can get down to work, and I find that's almost never the case. Yeah, I think that's probably it. What I wanted to say about unqualified advice. But it is perhaps the quote that has followed me the most about the work. And I think the thing that I like about these sort of random storytelling moments that I have is I think it demonstrates well what that means. You know, we sit together and we just start writing sentences and I don't know where it's going. And in that process, I find things. And in that you create something and then you can reflect on it and you go, is this worth continuing to adjust through editing and whatever else, or should I just drop it? Oh, we have a new person. Andrew Ryan. Woohoo, I figured out how to get in chat. I'll contribute more next time. Well, hello, Andrew. Welcome to the group. I'm happy to have you. I'm glad that you figured out the chat. So that's what I'll give you, and I'm only giving it to you because it is the piece of advice that I think has meant the most to me. And to me, that's the line between professional and amateur. Like, an amateur will have moments of inspiration, they'll follow through on it, they'll feel good and energy throughout it all, and then they'll put it into the world, and then they'll just sort of go on with their life for a while till they have another idea they want to see through. Whereas professionals of any type of art form will say, I need to produce something this week. Sit down and start doing things like you see me do here with random word generators or just pictures or whatever, and create something. And I think that is, if you're considering, like, in any way trying to be a professional artist, that's kind of what you got to get used to. That's the difference. You got to just be able to sit down and do the work. All right, well, it looks like we've turned to pirates in the chat. I think that's probably all I really had to say today, chat. I appreciate those who stuck around. I know having one voice in your ear the whole time is not anybody's favorite, but we got a couple of stories out. There. Nope, that's not the right one. And no, we're not going back to that. There we are. Holly says, I'm not a professional anything. This advice doesn't apply to me. That's true. It doesn't. GS, you didn't use fidget. I sure didn't. We'll have to write a story based around the word fidget to make up the difference. I was in a strange zone here where, like, I just really wanted to write my story. I see we've turned to pirates in the comments. That's fine. Pirates are welcome here. I am kind of working on a pirate story that I thought had been done a while ago. It's that choose your own adventure thing that I was going to do. The Varietal show is coming to a close. And I appreciate everybody who comes by and hangs out with me. It's as much fun for me as I hope it is for you. I hope you enjoyed the stories this week. I know they were a little on the dark and serious side, but they were dark and serious that we were not personally involved in. We could abuse Felix more. Well, I'm not going to stop that. There are certain people in the group I don't think could handle it, but I feel like Felix could. Holly invited me and this was cool. Look forward to it next time. Awesome, Andrew. It's really lovely to have people try it out. Fidgety Felix. No, No. Fidgety Rory. Rory, you don't see it because I'm kind of sitting in a position where I can't move too much. I never stop moving. I am so fidgety. It's floozy Felix. Because I cheat on you, chat, with these other people. But just a couple of things. If you like the show today, go check out the Varietal Show playlist on this channel. We have a whole bunch. There's also a Litgames playlist, which was just sort of an older format. But you can watch those as well. And on Tuesdays, I read old fairy tales and mythology and folklore. Try to do voices and so on. In a much calmer, chiller kind of stream. And rickety Rory. If you haven't already, subscribe and give us a like. And if you want to keep up to date with what's coming out, I mean, subscribing and hitting the bell will do that. But you can also follow us on Instagram at Varietal_lit. Same on Twitter. Check out Avalon's book recommendation. It's a pretty cool one. If you haven't already, it's the first episode came out yesterday. Anyways, why don't you guys get to your air conditioning and enjoy the rest of your day? Hobbled Holly, Rickety Rory, Andrew Ryan, Holly, GS, and all the lurkers in the background. Thank you so much for coming by and watching my nonsense. It's been a delight. Turn on that air conditioner because the store is closed.